The first human ship to reach the galactic core wasn't supposed to survive the journey. A single battered freighter called the Defiance, held together by welding scars and stubborn human pride, dropping out of hyperspace into the most civilized sector of the galaxy. The crew inside? 3 humans who had just accomplished what every advanced species in the known universe declared impossible. But let me back up. Let me tell you how we got there. The year was 2387, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for exactly 43 years. 43 years of being told to sit in the corner and be quiet while the real civilizations handled the important stuff. The Zephyrians with their crystal cities and 1,000-year lifespans. The Corvan Empire with their planet-sized warships and neural-linked battle fleets. The Ethereal Collective, beings of pure energy who spoke in mathematical equations and considered time itself their plaything. And then there were humans. Loud, chaotic, short-lived humans. We were classified as a Class 3 developmental species. Know what that means? It means we were cosmic children, barely worth acknowledging. We got a single seat on the Outer Council, not even the real one. And our representative was expected to vote however the Zephyrian delegate suggested. But humans, we've never been good at following suggestions. The morning everything changed started like any other aboard Orbital Station Meridian. Captain Elena Vasquez was nursing her 3rd coffee of the day, real coffee, not the synthetic stuff the other species preferred, when the priority alert screamed across her neural implant. "Captain," came the voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant Hayes. "You're going to want to see this." Elena's coffee mug hit the deck with a ceramic crash that echoed through the station's command center. On the holographic display floating before her, 3 impossible readings pulsed with urgent red warning lights. Ship classification, unknown. Energy signature, off the charts. Origin point, the galactic core. "That's impossible," she whispered, but even as the words left her lips, she knew they weren't. Because there, magnified on the secondary screen, was a vessel unlike anything she'd ever seen. It wasn't the sleek, geometric perfection of Zephyrian design. It wasn't the brutal, angular efficiency of Corvan architecture. This ship looked like someone had taken a mountain, hollowed it out, and somehow convinced it to fly. The thing was massive. Easily 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a patchwork of different metals and composites that gleamed like a rainbow oil slick under the station spotlights. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the eyes of some ancient, sleeping giant. And it was heading straight for Earth. "Ma'am," Hayes's voice cracked. "They're not responding to our hails." Elena's hand moved to the emergency beacon. One press would alert the entire fleet. One press would bring every human warship within 50 light-years screaming toward their position. But something made her hesitate. The ship's approach vector was too precise, too familiar. "Run a deeper scan," she ordered. "I want to know what that ship is made of." 3 minutes later, Hayes looked up from his console with an expression Elena had never seen before. Awe, terror, pride, all mixed together in a cocktail of pure human emotion. "Captain," he said slowly, "the hull composition matches Earth construction protocols. The energy signature, it's a human fusion drive. A really big human fusion drive." Elena felt the universe shift around her. But that's impossible. No human ship has ever reached the core. The radiation alone would kill anyone who tried. "Ma'am," Hayes whispered, "I'm getting a response to our hails." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Elena was staring at a face she recognized from history books. Weathered, scarred, with eyes that had seen things no human should have to see. Commander Marcusjan, the man who had vanished into deep space 15 years ago aboard a research vessel called the Defiance, pursuing some crackpot theory about faster-than-light travel through the galaxy's central black hole. "Meridian Station," his voice carried across the void. "This is Commander Chun of the Earth Deep Space Exploration Command. Request immediate conference with Galactic Council representatives. We have information regarding threats to galactic security. Elena's mind reeled. The Defiance had been a small research ship, barely 100 meters long. The vessel approaching them could house a small city. "Commander Chun," she managed, "please explain your ship configuration. Our sensors are detecting a vessel significantly larger than the Defiance." Chen's smile was the kind that had gotten humans into trouble for millennia. "Captain Vasquez, we've been busy." What happened next would be talked about in bars and council chambers across the galaxy for centuries to come. The ship, and Elena was beginning to understand, it wasn't just the Defiance anymore, docked with Meridian Station using docking clamps that had definitely not been there 15 years ago. As the airlock cycled, Elena found herself holding her breath. Commander Chin stepped through first, looking exactly as he had in his last transmission years ago, except for his clothes. Gone was the standard issue Earth Deep Space uniform. Instead, he wore something that looked like it had been woven from starlight itself, a material that seemed to shift and flow with each movement. Behind him came two other figures. Elena recognized them from the old crew manifests. Dr. Sarah Kim, the xenobiologist who had volunteered for the mission despite knowing it was likely a one-way trip, and Chief Engineer Paulo Santos, a man who could make any machine sing. But they'd changed. All of them had changed. Their eyes held depths that hadn't been there before. When they moved, there was a fluid grace that seemed almost alien. And when Dr. Kim smiled in greeting, Elena noticed her canine teeth were slightly pointed. "Captain," Chin said, his voice carrying harmonics that made Elena's bones vibrate, "we need to speak to the council. All of them. The Real Council, not the outer chamber they usually stick us in." "Commander, I'm going to need some explanations first, starting with what happened to your ship." Santos stepped forward, and when he spoke, his words carried the faint echo of machinery. "We found something out there, Captain. Something the Council has been hiding from everyone, including themselves." Dr. Kim's eyes seemed to glow faintly in the station's artificial lighting. "We found the architects." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Every sapient species in the galaxy had legends about the architects, the ancient race that had supposedly built the hyperspace lanes, created the fundamental technologies that modern civilization depended upon, then vanished without a trace millions of years ago. "The architects are extinct," Elena said automatically. "No," Chin replied, his smile growing wider, revealing teeth that were definitely sharper than they should be. "They're not." What followed was a story that would reshape Elena's understanding of everything. 15 years ago, the Defiance had attempted to use the galaxy's central black hole as a gravitational slingshot to reach previously unexplored regions. It was a desperate gambit based on theoretical physics and human stubbornness. It should have killed them. Instead, it had launched them not through space, but through something else entirely. "Time isn't linear near the core," Dr. Kim explained, her voice carrying strange harmonics. "Reality becomes flexible." The architects learned to navigate that flexibility, to use it. They had found the architect homeworld, or what remained of it, a planet-sized construct built around a dying star, where time moved in spirals and space folded like origami. And there, in halls that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, they had found the architect themselves. "They never died," Santos said, his words accompanied by the soft whir of internal machinery. "They evolved, transcended, became something beyond physical existence." But here's where the story gets interesting. The architects, it turned out, had been watching the galaxy for millions of years. Watching and waiting for something specific, a species that could prove worthy of inheriting their legacy. Every known civilization had been tested. The Zephyrians with their perfect crystal cities and millennial patience. The Corvins with their planet-cracking weapons and hive mind discipline. The ethereal collective with their mastery of pure energy and time. All of them had failed. They were too perfect, Chin explained. Too specialized. Too safe. The architects weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for chaos. Creative, unpredictable, beautifully chaotic potential. They were looking for humans. We spent 10 years with them, Dr. Kim continued. Learning, changing. They showed us technologies that make our current understanding of physics look like cave paintings. Elena stared at the three figures before her, finally understanding what she was seeing. They weren't quite human anymore. They were something more, something that bridged the gap between humanity and whatever the architects had become. They sent us back, Santos said, as messengers, as heralds. Humanity is about to inherit the galaxy, Captain, whether the other species like it or not. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. That ship of yours is just the beginning, she nodded. The architects have been preparing for this moment for millions of years. Every piece of technology in the galaxy, every hyperspace lane, every habitable world, it was all designed as a test. And humanity just passed with flying colors. Elena's communication console erupted with incoming transmissions. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy, demanding explanations for the massive energy signatures being detected throughout human space. Because the Defiance hadn't returned alone. As Elena watched through the station's external cameras, space began to shimmer. Reality twisted, and suddenly the void around Meridian Station was filled with ships. Hundreds of them, thousands. But these weren't the familiar human designs Elena knew. These vessels looked organic, alive, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, their weapon ports glowing with energies that made her instruments scream warnings. The Architect fleet, Chin explained casually. They've been waiting in folded space for the right moment. The moment humanity was ready to claim its inheritance. Elena's neural implant chimed with an emergency transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on her screen, his expression somewhere between terror and disbelief. Vasquez, what the hell is happening out there? My sensors are showing impossible readings across the entire system. Before Elena could respond, every screen on the station flickered. When the image cleared, they were looking at something that definitely wasn't human anymore. The being on the screen was tall, elegant, with features that suggested it might once have been humanoid, but had evolved beyond such limitations. Its eyes were galaxies, literally. Elena could see stars being born and dying in those depths. When it spoke, reality seemed to bend around its words. I am the Prime Architect, the being said, and its voice was the sound of creation itself. For 4 million years, we have watched this galaxy develop. We have guided. We have tested. We have waited. Admiral Harrison's jaw worked soundlessly. Today, that waiting ends. The species known as humanity has proven themselves worthy successors to our legacy. Effective immediately, all Architect technologies, territories, and responsibilities are transferred to human control. Elena felt the universe tilt on its axis. Furthermore, the Prime Architect continued, humanity will have exclusive access to the Nexus, the interdimensional network that connects all galaxies in this local cluster. They will serve as guardians of the cosmic order we established and pioneers of the new age we cannot enter. The transmission ended, leaving behind a silence so complete Elena could hear her own heartbeat. Then every communication channel in the galaxy exploded. The Zephyrian High Council demanding explanations. The Corvan Battle Fleet mobilizing for war. The Ethereal Collective withdrawing from physical space entirely. And in the background of it all, the steady pulse of activation signals as Architect technologies across the galaxy came online under human control. Chun turned to Elena with that same unsettling smile. Captain, I think it's time to call that council meeting. What followed was 3 days of the most chaotic, explosive, and ultimately transformative negotiations in galactic history. The emergency session convened aboard the massive council station orbiting the neutral world of Harmony Prime. Every major species sent their most experienced diplomats, their best military commanders, their wisest philosophers. Humanity sent Elena. This is unprecedented, declared Zephyrian Prime Minister Christos, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's lights like a prism. Humanity has been a member of the galactic community for barely 4 decades. They lack the experience, the wisdom, the cultural development to handle such responsibility. The Corvan War Marshal slammed a massive fist on the conference table. They are children playing with weapons they do not understand. This inheritance must be rejected. Elena sat quietly through hours of such protests, watching the alien dignitaries work themselves into a frenzy of righteous indignation. Finally, when the chamber fell silent, she stood. "You're absolutely right," she said simply. The room erupted in confusion. This wasn't the defiant human response they'd expected. Elena continued, her voice calm and measured. "Humanity is young. We are chaotic. We make mistakes constantly. We're loud, unpredictable, and we have a tendency to break things just to see how they work." Agreement murmured around the chamber. "But here's the thing you're all missing," Elena said, her voice growing stronger. "The architects didn't choose us in spite of those qualities. They chose us because of them." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy as it existed 4 million years ago, a chaotic, violent place where species rose and fell in the span of millennia. When the architects first achieved transcendence, the galaxy was dying. Entropy was winning. Species were becoming too specialized, too perfect, too static. Evolution had stopped. The display shifted, showing the gradual stabilization of galactic civilization under architect guidance. So they created a test, a galaxy-wide experiment designed to find a species capable of bringing chaos back into the equation. Not destructive chaos, but creative chaos. The kind that drives evolution, innovation, growth. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Every one of your species was tested. The Zephyrians created perfect crystal cities that lasted for millennia without change. The Corvans built an empire so efficient it could conquer worlds without firing a shot. The ethereal collective mastered energy itself. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. And in doing so, you all proved you weren't what the galaxy needed. The chamber fell silent. Humans, Elena continued, are the only species in galactic history to look at a stable, perfectly functional hyperdrive and immediately start trying to make it go faster. We're the only ones who see a peaceful planet and ask, but what if we could make it better? We break things. We fix things. We improve things. We never, ever leave well enough alone. Prime Minister Christos's crystalline form flickered with barely contained anger. You call this virtue? This destructive impulse? Elena smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like Commander Chen. I call it evolution. The holographic display shifted again, showing readings from across the galaxy. Everywhere architect technology had activated under human control. The data showed something remarkable. Efficiency was up. Innovation was accelerating. New discoveries were being made daily. In the 3 days since humans gained access to architect technology, Elena explained, we've improved hyperspace transit times by 40%, discovered 17 new habitable worlds, and developed 3 entirely new forms of energy generation. She gestured to the shocked faces around her. When was the last time any of your species made a genuine breakthrough? When was the last time you discovered something that wasn't already cataloged in architect databases? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Elena continued, her voice growing passionate. The architects didn't choose humans to rule over you. They chose us to push you, to challenge you, to drag you kicking and screaming into a future that's bigger and brighter and more chaotic than anything you've ever imagined. War Marshal Corvan's massive form shifted ominously. And if we refuse, if we choose to resist this human evolution, Elena's smile widened, and suddenly the chamber's lights dimmed as every architect facility in the galaxy pulsed with power. Then you'll discover what happens when you fight evolution itself. But here's where Elena did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She sat down. "But I don't want to rule over you," she said quietly. "None of us do. We just want to explore, to learn, to grow, to take all these amazing technologies and see what new things we can build with them." She looked around the chamber again, her expression earnest. "The architects left us a galaxy full of wonders, but they also left us something else: each other. Every species here has something unique to offer. The Zephyrians have patience and long-term thinking we desperately need. The Corvins have discipline and organizational skills that could help us channel our chaos more effectively. The ethereal collective understands energy in ways that could revolutionize everything." Elena stood again, her voice filling with something that might have been hope. "The architects didn't choose humans to replace you. They chose us to lead you into something none of us could achieve alone. A truly cooperative galactic civilization where chaos and order, innovation and stability, youth and wisdom work together." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But that only works if you choose to be part of it." For long minutes, the chamber remained silent. Then, slowly, Zephyrian Prime Minister Christos began to glow, her crystalline form shifting through colors Elena had never seen before. "You speak of cooperation," Christos said carefully, "but humans now control all architect technology. You have the power to enforce your will throughout the galaxy." Elena nodded. "Yes, we do." Another pause. "And we're offering to share it." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Alien delegates began shouting in a dozen different languages, accusations and threats flying across the chamber. But Elena just waited, that same calm smile on her face. Finally, War Marshal Corvin's voice boomed over the chaos. "Why?" Elena looked directly at him. "Because that's what humans do. We share. We trade. We argue and fight and eventually figure out how to work together. It's literally how our entire species evolved." She activated another holographic display, this one showing Earth's history. Every major advancement in human civilization came from cooperation between different groups, different tribes, different nations, different cultures. "We learned a long time ago that diversity makes us stronger." The display shifted to show human colonies throughout known space. Every human world is different. Every colony has its own culture, its own approach to problems, its own innovations. And we're better for it. Elena looked around the chamber. "Now imagine what we could accomplish with not just human diversity, but galactic diversity. Zephyrian patience guiding Corvin efficiency, enhanced by ethereal understanding, driven by human innovation." Prime Minister Christos's form had stabilized into a soft, thoughtful blue. "This sharing you propose, what would it entail?" Elena smiled. "Joint research projects, shared colonies, exchange programs, cultural festivals. Basically everything we do with each other, but on a galactic scale. And the architect inheritance, administered by a joint council. Humans provide the chaos and innovation. You provide the wisdom and stability. Nobody makes major decisions alone." War Marshal Corvin leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. "You would give up absolute power for cooperation?" Elena's laugh was pure human mischief. "Marshal, if there's one thing humans have learned over the millennia, it's that absolute power is absolutely boring. We need someone to argue with." And that's when something beautiful happened. Prime Minister Christos began to laugh. It was a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, musical and light. Soon War Marshal Corvin was rumbling with what might have been amusement, and even the representatives of the ethereal collective were flickering in patterns that suggested humor. The tension in the chamber didn't disappear, but it transformed into something else. Something that might have been possibility. "Very well," Christos said finally. "The Zephyrian hegemony is willing to discuss terms for this cooperative arrangement. The Corvin Empire acknowledges human inheritance rights, and expresses interest in partnership negotiations, War Marshal Corvin added. One by one, around the chamber, the same pattern repeated. Not unconditional acceptance, but willingness to try something new. Elena felt something she hadn't expected. Relief so profound it made her knees weak. "Thank you," she said simply. "All of you." But the real transformation was just beginning. Over the following months, as humans began integrating architect technology with galactic civilization, something unprecedented happened. The galaxy began to change in ways nobody had anticipated. Human-designed improvements to hyperspace navigation reduced travel times so dramatically that previously isolated worlds became major trade hubs overnight. Zephyrian patience and planning helped humans avoid the catastrophic mistakes their enthusiasm might have caused. Corvin organizational systems streamlined human chaos into productive innovation. Ethereal understanding of energy allowed for technological breakthroughs that would have taken centuries to achieve independently. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy began to dream again. For millennia, the various species had been content with the stable, predictable existence the architects had provided. Now, with human chaos stirring the mix, everyone began to imagine new possibilities. Zephyrian artists created sculptures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Corvin engineers designed starships that could reshape themselves mid-flight. Ethereal philosophers developed entirely new forms of mathematics. And humans did what they'd always done. They looked at all these amazing new developments and asked, but what if we could make them even better? The result was an explosion of creativity and innovation unlike anything the galaxy had seen since the architect era began. But it wasn't without challenges. The integration process was chaotic, messy, and occasionally explosive. There were accidents, misunderstandings, and conflicts that sometimes required delicate negotiation to resolve. Like the incident on Kepler 442b, where human colonists accidentally triggered an architect terraforming system and turned a desert world into a jungle planet overnight, displacing the existing Zephyrian crystal gardens. Or the confusion in the Vega system when Corvin battle fleets interpreted human improvement modifications to their defensive satellites as acts of aggression. Or the spectacular failure of the first joint human ethereal energy experiment, which temporarily turned a small moon purple and made it sing opera for 3 weeks. But with each challenge, the various species learned to work together more effectively. Humans learned to consult with their partners before making major modifications. The other species learned to expect and plan for human unpredictability. Elena, who had somehow become humanity's primary liaison to the galactic community, found herself busier than she'd ever imagined possible. Every day brought new crises, breakthroughs, discoveries, and opportunities. Like the morning she received a priority transmission from the Deep Space Exploration Command. "Captain," came Commander Chen's voice across the void, "you need to see this." The holographic display showed the Defiance, now barely recognizable under its architect modifications, hovering near the edge of the galaxy. But that wasn't what made Elena's breath catch. Behind the ship, space itself was rippling like water. And through those ripples, she could see stars that didn't belong to their galaxy at all. "Commander," Elena said carefully, "please tell me you haven't accidentally opened a portal to another galaxy." Chen's grin was visible even across the vastness of space. "Okay, I won't tell you that." Elena felt the familiar sensation of the universe shifting around her. "Commander, the Nexus is bigger than we thought, Captain. A lot bigger. The architects didn't just connect all the galaxies in our local cluster. They connected everything. And I mean everything." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If humans now had access to not just their galaxy, but every galaxy in the known universe. "There's more," Chen continued. "We're getting response signals from the other side. Lots of them. It appears we're not the only species to inherit architect technology recently." Elena's mind reeled. other species in other galaxies, facing the same transformation humanity was experiencing. "Chan," she said slowly, "please tell me we're not about to start an intergalactic war." His laugh carried across the cosmic distance. "Captain, when have humans ever started a war we could avoid turning into a party instead?" And that's when Elena understood something fundamental about what was happening. The architects hadn't just chosen humanity to inherit their technology. They'd chosen them to be ambassadors to the universe itself. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning strangers into friends, enemies into allies, and impossible situations into opportunities. The galaxy was just the beginning. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of Meridian Station, watching the most beautiful chaos she'd ever witnessed unfold before her. Human ships worked alongside Zephyrian crystal vessels, their hulls gleaming with shared technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Corvin battle cruisers served as escorts for ethereal energy beings exploring physical space for the first time in millennia. And in the distance, barely visible but unmistakably there, the shimmer of gateways leading to other galaxies, other possibilities, other adventures waiting to be discovered. Her communication implant chimed softly. The daily report from the Galactic Cooperation Council, the new governing body that had evolved from those first chaotic negotiations. Trade between species, up 400%. Scientific discoveries, averaging 17 per day. Cultural exchange programs, oversubscribed by a factor of 12. Diplomatic incidents, down to manageable levels, mostly involving humans accidentally improving things that other species liked the way they were. Elena smiled, remembering the warnings and predictions that had accompanied humanity's inheritance. Catastrophic war, galactic collapse, the end of civilization as they knew it. Instead, they'd gotten the most beautiful, creative, productive chaos in galactic history. Her implant chimed again. A personal message from Commander Chun, now officially designated as humanity's intergalactic liaison, a job title that would have been incomprehensible just a year ago. "Captain," his message read, "the neighbors are interesting. Pack for extended travel. We're going visiting." Elena laughed, the sound echoing through the observation deck. Only humans, she thought, would inherit the most advanced technology in the universe, and immediately use it to go introduce themselves to complete strangers across the cosmos. But as she watched the ships moving through space with impossible grace, as she saw species that had barely tolerated each other for millennia working together with unprecedented cooperation, as she contemplated the infinite possibilities stretching out before them all, Elena realized something profound. Maybe that's exactly what the universe needed. Maybe chaos, guided by wisdom and tempered by cooperation, was the secret ingredient that had been missing from galactic civilization. Maybe the architects had been right all along. Elena turned from the observation deck and headed for her quarters, already planning for the next impossible adventure. Because if there was one thing she'd learned about humans, it was that they never met a frontier they didn't want to cross, a challenge they didn't want to face, or a stranger they didn't want to turn into a friend. And now they had an entire universe to explore. The galaxy would never be the same. And honestly, that was probably for the best. Because sometimes what the universe needs most is a little beautiful chaos to shake things up, push boundaries, and remind everyone that the best adventures always begin with someone asking a simple question. What if we tried something different? Elena smiled as she activated her personal log for the day's final entry. Captain's log, supplemental. Today, we inherited the galaxy. Tomorrow, we explore the universe. And somehow, despite all the chaos and confusion and completely impossible circumstances, it feels like we're exactly where we're supposed to be. She paused, looking out her quarters viewport at the impossible beauty of organized chaos surrounding them. Personal note: remind me to send the architects a thank you message. Not sure how to address interdimensional beings of pure, transcendent consciousness, but I figure we'll work something out. We always do. Elena closed the log and settled in for sleep, dreaming of the infinite adventures waiting just beyond the next impossible horizon. After all, chaos was what humans did best, and they were just getting started.